Alright, so today we're going to look at a simple API class that we use to pull data from our database. Just to make it easier, because I've been using APIs a lot using vue.js, so I'm just going to go through it with you. Alright, so the first thing we have is new table model, and we could pass in the table name. So right now we have contacts in there, so we have a database called contacts, and we can pass in the table name. So in the construct function, you can see we have the table name, and we set in the value to this.table. Before it was the default is events, right? Because that's what I was usually using. And then we could call a function, just say model get all records and var them, and you see the results here, right? So this is all the data from the database. What we could actually do is we could pass in an array here, and we could see we just want ID and name, and that should just give us the ID and name, right? So just the ID and the name. And again, if you want to put it as a JSON, you could use this JSON response function, right? So I have two headers, and we're just using JSON encode. It could do more than that. So right now we have we call it the insert function on the class. So we say insert, and we put in a name and email. So once we run this, we should see the data in our database, as long as we have no errors, right? It returns true. So I don't know if you could see it here. This is the record we just inserted, right? So we could insert our records. Now we're going to update the record by the primary key. As you can see, we could pass in the ID, the data that we want to update, and then this is whether the primary key is. So the primary key is usually ID, right? But you could change it to anything else. So if the primary key name is an ID, you need to put in the actual name there. So we're just going to put in the record we just updated was 54. So we're just going to put in 54, and the ID is the same. So we're just going to add 2, and that should allow us to update. So you can see we have 2 here. wfTutorials 2. In this case, we return null, but I probably should update it so that it could return true if there are no errors. Alright, so I'm just going to run it again just so you can see that it works. Right, so to delete our record, we just call in delete record by primary key, and the ID is 54, so we should just see that disappear once we run it. Alright, and it returns true. 54 should no longer be there. I'm going to go through the entire class, but you can see some of the functions. So we have a get results. This is where we get the results from the database, and we map it to an array, so we could use it accordingly. Get all records. This is the query here. Select star from this table. Get one record. This is the get insert function. Right, so I'm not going to explain all of it. You could always look through it and understand what it does. Get update SQL. Get columns and values, insert record, update record by primary key, delete record. This JSON response is a part of the class, right? But again, you could always use it in order to get your JSON output. So if I was to use JSON response, status could be anything, and message could be anything, and the data is results. I believe I could do that. Right, so we have our data there, right? And in truth, what we don't actually do is get our records. Yeah, so we would see our data displayed in our data there. All right, so this is a simple API I plan to be using for some of the things I'm doing. So we have an events manager, put out a tutorial on that. But because we're using these basic queries so much, I decided just to create a class to simplify that. Alright,